Language is a tool that humans use to communicate or share thoughts, ideas, and emotions. It is a set of rules shared by the individuals who are communicating that allows them to exchange those thoughts, ideas, or emotions. Language may also be expressed through writing, signing, or even by gestures. In this session today, we will talk about speech, language, and dialect. Speech is talking, one way that a language can be expressed. We take speech as granted because its most basic use in everyday conversation seems ephemeral and transitory, and yet it is central to social process. As human beings in society, we talk our way through our lives, from home to school, from school to work, from childhood to maturity, through friendships, jobs, and marriage. Speech is crucial in a number of activities, including socialization. In order to have a clear picture of speech in its social context, an understanding of few of the fundamental concepts is required. First, let us talk about ethnography of speaking. Ethnography of speaking is the approach to sociolinguistics of language in which the use of language in general is related to social and cultural values. To understand what ethnography of speaking or ethnography of communication is all about, it is necessary to discuss the following concepts. First, let us talk about units of interaction within a speech community. Himes suggested that there are three hierarchy units called speech situation, speech event, and speech acts. First, let's see speech situation. Speech situation is described by Himes as the situations associated with or marked by the absence of speech. Examples are ceremonies, fight, hunts, etc. Speech situations are not only communicative, it can be combined with other events. Speech event. Speech events are both communicative and governed by the rules for the use of speech. A speech event takes place within a speech situation and is composed of one or more speech acts.
Giving that proper dosage of technology therein.
Speech acts. According to Himes, a speech act is to be distinguished from the sentence and is not to be identified with any unit at any level of grammar. For him, speech act gets a status from social context as well as grammatical form and intonation. Now, we look at the components of speech. Haim suggests that there are certain components of speech and he puts them in 8 groups, each labeled with one of the letters of the word speaking. The first one is S. S stands for situation. The situation is composed of the setting and the scene. The setting is about the physical circumstances of the communicative event, including the time and place. The scene in the psychological setting, as in what kind of speech event is taking place according to cultural definitions. Next is P. P stands for participants. The participants P include not only the speaker and the addressee, but also the addresser and the audience. Third one, E, stands for ends of a speech event. The ends of a speech event can be divided into outcomes, that is, the purpose of the event from the cultural point of view, and goals, that is, the purposes of the individual participants. Next is A, or act sequence. Message form, or how something is said, and content, or what is said, together are called act sequence. Both message form and message content involve communicative skills that vary from culture to culture. Next is K, or key. Key refers to the manner or spirit in which a speech act is carried out. For example, whether it is mock or serious, or perfunctory or painstaking. Next is I, or instrumentalities. Instrumentalities include both channels and forms of speech. Channel is a way a message travels from one person to another. The most commonly used channels are oral or written transmissions of a message. Forms of speech are the languages and their subdivisions, dialects, codes, registers, varieties, etc. Next is N, or norms. Communication involves norms, both of interaction and interpretation. Next is G, stands for genres. Genres refer to categories like poems, myths, proverbs, lectures, and commercial messages. Different genres have defining formal characteristics. What is language? Language is the expression of human communication through which knowledge, belief, and behavior can be experienced, explained, and shared. This sharing is based on systematic, conventionally used signs, sounds, gestures, or marks that convey understood meaning within a group or community. We will now talk about language standardization. Language standardization is a process by which a vernacular in a community becomes a standard language form. The only variety which would count as a proper language is a standard language. Standardization is a process by which a language is codified in some way. The process involves the development of grammars, spelling books, dictionaries, and possibly a literature. Play the game. Now, let's talk about dialect. Dialect is a form of the language that is spoken in one area that may be different from other form of the same language. It shows the features of grammar and vocabulary as well as aspects of pronunciation. The Dictionary of Linguistics defines dialect as a variety of a language used by people from a particular geographic area. Many historical linguists view every speech form as a dialect of the older medium from which it was developed. For example, modern Romance languages such as French and Italian develop from dialects of Latin. Now we look at the difference between language and dialect. Many people wonder what is the difference between a language and a dialect. There are no universally accepted criteria for distinguishing them, and the difference is often a matter of degree rather than of kind. It is, of course, difficult to provide clear-cut definitions for language and dialect. Languages are social phenomena and do not necessarily have clear edges that would make them easy to identify and define. We can make generalizations about language, but these refer to social, political, and cultural factors rather than any intrinsic, concrete and rational evaluation of the linguistic features of the language itself. In ordinary usage, the distinction between language and dialect is a political distinction rather than a linguistic one, and linguists prefer to use the term variety wherever the distinction between the two is not significant enough for the analysis being done. Factors for language differences can be grouped into two broad categories: social and linguistic. First, we take up social factors. One side of explanation for dialects is found in the social and historical conditions that surround language change. Within the socio-historical factors, there are many divisions that set the stage for dialect differences. Let's first take up settlement. One of the most obvious explanations for why there are dialects is rooted in the settlement patterns of group of speakers. Settlement generally takes place in several distinct phases. In the initial phase, a group of people moves to an area where there are attractive environmental qualities. The immigrants bring with them the culture of their origin. In the next phase, available land is occupied and a new cultural identity emerges as a cohesive society develops in the region. The creation of this new culture is accompanied by the elimination of established cultures and way of speaking. In the third phase of settlement, regional population define roles for themselves with respect to wider social groupings. Now we talk about geographical factors. Geography often plays a role in the development of dialects. When we talk about the significance of geographical boundaries, we are really talking about the lines of communication. The most effective communication is face-to-face interaction, and when speakers do not interact on personal level, the likelihood of dialect divergence heighten. Now, another factor, language contact. Contact with speakers of other languages often takes place during the course of establishment of new settlements and subsequent migration from these initial settlements, and these contacts can influence dialect development. Economic ecology. Different economic bases not only bring about the development of specialized vocabulary items associated with different occupations that may also affect the direction and rate of language change in grammar and pronunciation. The traditional distinction between agriculturally based rural lifestyles and industrialized urban is reflected in dialect differences on all levels of language organization. The next factor, social stratification. Social status differences play a role not only in language variation across space, but also in language change over time. Though it is difficult to determine the social class and other social group divisions that are responsible for bringing language change, social class differences do play a major role in the patterning of language variation and change. Social interaction and social practices. Who people talk to on regular basis is an important factor in the development of dialect differences. At the individual pattern of interaction or social networks, density and multiplexity of speakers, social interaction are the core issues. Another term associated with the study of dialectical variation in its social context is speech community. One of the pioneers of modern sociolinguistic study, William Labob, has defined the speech community as a group of people with shared norms or common evaluation of linguistic variables. Now, we look at the linguistic factors. The other side of explaining language differences relates to the structure of language. Under constant linguistic pressure to change, some groups of speakers adopt certain changes while others hold out against them. If a new language feature continues to be used by a certain group and not by others, then a dialect difference is born. Linguistic and social factors do not work in isolation in the formation of dialects. Dialects are rather affected by a complex array of factors in various combinations. A regional dialect is not a distinct language, but a variety of a language spoken in a particular area of a country. It is associated with geographic area and the study of how a language varies from one area to another, and this is called regional dialectology. In traditional historical linguistics, the notion of dialect is almost exclusively reserved for geographically defined local and regional varieties. Dialect differences are also correlated with social differences. Dialectologists speak of social dialects or socialects to refer to non-regional differences. They are associated with a social or ethnic group and are not spoken by all the members of the group. In addition to social or regional dialects, most languages have at least some discontinuous supra-regional dialects defined only in terms of social factors which extend across the boundaries of continuous dialects. Such dialects of these type are commonly referred to as jargons or registers or occupational dialects. These consist mainly of the specialized vocabularies used in different industries and occupations such as the aeroplane industry, the theatre, mining, and so on. The session has introduced several types of topic ranging from speech to language and its varieties, which include dialects and its types. One of the major concepts, that is ethnography of speaking or ethnography of communication, as an approach to the study of language and social context, is in practice a branch of anthropology. On the border between social linguistics and language, the ethnography of speaking nicely illustrates anthropological methods and approaches to sociolinguistic themes. And with this, we come to an end of this session.